Hello and welcome to the Unlocking Behaviour Change Podcast, the show all about changing behaviour and psychology itself. My name is Jamie West. I'm a writer, performer and musician, and I am joined by the Emeritus Professor, or is the Professor Emeritus? I got it wrong in the last episode. Robert West.
Yes, we have been through this.
You insist on calling, even in private, you insist on being called Professor.
Emeritus.
Every sentence has to start that way. That's behind the scenes. That's what people don't know about in the podcast.
And what you can't tell from the pronunciation is it emeritus or emeritus, which would make a big difference. Emeritus suggests that there is some merit.
Yes.
Emeritus, I would argue, depending on the derivation, suggests that there is no merit. As in amoral.
No merit. Professor of no merit.
That's right. I'm a lacking in merit professor.
Wow. God, that would be a great title to be able to give people if you really hated them. All right. So we are talking about COM-B, and we are specifically talking about the new developments in COM-B leading to COM-B 2.0. And we've been working our way through that. And today we are going to have a chat about motivation. So we're getting on to motivation and our beliefs and our desires. So you've been having a think about this, Robert, as you're reworking COM-B. And what have you been thinking?
Well, so just as a sort of introduction to it, the development of COM-B 2.0 is an extension and clarification of the original COM-B. It's not a replacement for it, so people could breathe a sigh of relief. We're not throwing out the baby with the bathwater, but there are various things over the years since it was first developed that have cropped up on a fairly repeated basis that we are attending to. And one of them, which is what we're looking at the moment, is sort of more granular features of capability, opportunity, and motivation to give people who are developing interventions a better steer as to where they can target their efforts when doing what's known as a COM-B diagnosis or a behavioral diagnosis. And today I wanted to just cover really crucial aspects of motivation that come up an awful lot and make some potentially important distinctions. Now, to do that, I also have to mention that the motivation part of COM-B is a little bit different from capability and opportunity in that when we talk about, as we do in COM-B, reflective and automatic motivation, whereas with other parts of COM-B where we've got physical and social opportunity, for example, and physical and psychological capability, those two things in each case are in parallel with each other. So they're different things, although they might be related to each other. In motivation, the theoretical foundation of it is the prime theory of motivation, which we've talked about a lot in these podcasts and in our books, which sets things out a bit differently, because the idea is that reflective and automatic motivation are not in parallel with each other so much as in series, by which I mean that the reflective motivation has to work through the automatic motivation in order to influence behavior. So what you're thinking you should do, the thoughts about what would be a good idea, what is ethical and moral, what is useful and so on, all those things, and your plans and so on, in the moment, they have to be channeled through your animal brain, as we've called it, and other people have used similar sort of metaphors, in order to influence behavior, because the clever part of your brain evolved later and works through those other systems. It doesn't get a sort of a direct path to your behavior. Now, what that means is that when you're looking at the different COM-B features, two key features are, one is part of reflective motivation, which is the level of belief that the behavior is worthwhile, bearing in mind the costs and the benefits. So this is your thoughts about what is good and bad, right and wrong, and whether a behavior is going to be worth it. But related to that is the extent to which in your animal brain you're expecting to enjoy or get some satisfaction from it, or indeed that would generate what in prime theory we call wants, or indeed your level of expected relief from or avoidance of discomfort from it. So these are feelings, more than beliefs, which would be the need part of prime theory for those listeners who are aware of it. So when we're taking these elements of the COM-B model, we need to see how they link up with and relate to each other in order to be able to figure out where we're going to target our interventions.
So let's bring this to a concrete example. I'm going to use myself as an example right now, okay? So recently I bought myself a Nintendo Switch 2. Other consoles are available, so that I could try and... I'm always looking for new ways to relax. I find it a bit hard to switch off because, as people know, I'm a writer and a musician, so what I love to do is also my job. So I need to find ways. What I'd like to do in my off time is just watch, all the art and watch films that I like and TV, but I find my brain going off on being like, oh, how's that made? And what are they doing there? So I'm always striving to find ways to just let my brain sort of go. So I bought Nintendo and I started playing a very popular game called Animal Crossing. People will be aware of this game.
I'm not aware
right?
of it.
You're aware of it.
I'm not aware of it.
Oh, you're not aware of it.
I'm guessing it's something to do with an animal crossing a road or something?
Exactly, that's what people think it is. Maybe it originally started that way. I have no idea. It is not. It isn't really to do with an animal crossing a road at all.
Oh.
But you kind of go around and sort of have an island where you chop wood and build things and mine for little bits of gold and stuff. It's a fun game. And what I'm getting to here is my beliefs about the worthwhileness of playing this game. And any kind of game which has a sort of a quasi addictive quality to it, where you go, I want to go back and I've got to go back and build that house, or I've got to go back and I've got to find all these different fish to put in a museum. It's got all these tasks in the game. And I'm interested in this gray space where we have our beliefs about whether an activity is worthwhile, because we were just talking about that. And for me, I'm in an interesting space where I've only just started playing it. I've only played it for a few days. And I'm like, I've got to get back to playing that game. And I enjoy it and it's relaxing. But I have some gray area around anything that goes, well, if you turn up tomorrow, we'll give you extra points in the game. We'll give you extra, in-game money. It's not real money, in-game money. And so it's obviously using sort of strategies that are rewarding to get you to play the game. So I have this gray area where I'm enjoying it, but I have some doubts, over time. Is this a worthwhile use of my time? Bearing in mind what I'm trying to do is actually spend my time doing something that's not worthwhile, but just relaxing, if that makes sense.
Which is
not
in
productive.
Itself, the point of it is worthwhile.
Exactly. This is the example I can bring you from my life.
Well, it's actually, interestingly, I would imagine that kind of relationship between worthwhile enjoyment and satisfaction is very evident in so many things that we all do, and which is why it's really. In practice, it's very often quite hard to distinguish them and tease them apart. But you do need to do it conceptually, if not, when it comes down to it in terms of your intervention. Because if you neglect the enjoyment, satisfaction, and relief from or avoidance of discomfort part of it, and you only, this is my proposition to you and the listeners, you only focus on the worthwhile part of it, the behavior is not going to happen. And that may sound like a very strong claim, the idea that if no one does anything just because they think it's worthwhile. That made you think, well, loads of people do things because they think it's worthwhile. They don't necessarily expect to enjoy it or whatever. Now, my proposition to you, and this goes all the way back to the very origins of prime theory, is that you may think that. You may think that or it may seem to you that all you're concerned with here is whether this is a good thing to do or the right thing to do. But in practice, to the extent that it influences your behavior, there's something else going on that turns that cold cognition into a hot, relatively hot, or at least warm affect, which makes which contributes to the enjoyment, satisfaction, and the avoidance of discomfort. And a key element of that is identity, is who you are. And so if it didn't matter to you at all, it was not in any way part of your sense of yourself, being a writer musician, being someone who does certain things, has certain principles, some values, some rules, and so on. If those things didn't matter to you, then the simple belief that something is a good thing to do would just be an empty belief. It wouldn't translate. And it's not just that identity is this sort of bridge between worthwhile and enjoyment, satisfaction, discomfort, etc. It's not the only one, but it is a very important one. So the key thing I'm trying to get across here is that when you're using, let's say, the belief that behavior is worthwhile component of COM-B, in order to develop your intervention, you should always, and I mean always, be having in your mind, how is that going to translate into a desire, into a feeling that this is something that that not just is a good idea, but I actually feel that I want to do or I need to do.
And when we're talking about generating or increasing these desires, because we all might have a low-level desire to do a healthy behavior, it's a feeling, not just a thought. There may be, I'm assuming, a low level. I kind of want to do that.
For sure.
You're trying to push it above a certain threshold, aren't you? So you actually do it at the appropriate moment, as you've been saying. So what ways do people have then to increase that? How are we getting into the part of our brains that makes us actually move our limbs and go to the gym or eat more salad or whatever it is? How are we actually getting that energy into our limbs away from cold cognition? I like that phrase, cold cognition.
Yeah. So there's two things to bring out here. One is that, bear in mind that motivation is always a competition. And if the competition is very low, then it doesn't matter whether this behavior or this desire is quite low. It's a bit like with what was it famously, when you've got a whole bunch of people running away from a lion. It doesn't matter how fast any of them are. It's just you don't want to be the slowest, right?
Yeah.
So there will be lots of occasions in our lives where it doesn't really matter that much. It's just, so you're not feeling, oh, I really, really need this. It's just, you got to want this more than something else. And in marketing, for example, and a lot of the ways in which our decisions are manipulated through marketing and product placement is that they're not big decisions. It's this brand or that brand, but where it's placed in the supermarket shelf, the color of the labeling, little things can just tip the balance. So that's one thing to bear in mind. It's always a competition. So it doesn't have to be the feelings don't have to be hot. They just have to be warmer than the feelings for whatever's else is on the table.
So just to pick up on what you said there, you were saying that, say you're in a supermarket and you've got the traffic light system, green, amber, red, and you're deciding between two different products. And if you see there's actually red on one of them, maybe on the sugar, and there's orange on the sugar on another one, you're going to be looking at that. And it's not like you desperately want one over the other. You go, actually, this is just a bit better for me. It's pretty marginal, but it has changed your behavior in a meaningful way, potentially.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So behavior change and through motivation can be, it's, again, I'll just say it again, it's always about the relative strength of motivation in that scenario. And so it can be marginally greater, it can be a lot greater, and so on. It just has to be greater. And so much of what is done in marketing and commerce, and so much of what we can do to help people change behaviors for the better, is in those situations where you could do this or you could do that. It's not massively important to do one or the other for you, but your feeling towards one is a bit higher, stronger, more attractive than towards the other. That's what you will do. And statistically, at a population level, you're shifting preferences by 1%, 2%, 3%, but that can be incredibly important. So that was one thing I wanted to say in relation to what you were saying about your example. The other thing is that the relationship between your beliefs about what's good and bad, right and wrong, and so on, your cognitions and your affects have a two-way interaction going between them, so that your value systems, together with your identity and so on, they shape your affect, your feelings. Your feelings then contribute to the beliefs. A sort of example of this that comes up when you're teenagers, but I guess all through life, is the concept of taste and what you like and what's good and bad. And ultimately, our beliefs about what's good and bad derive from our affect. Tony Iommi, greatest guitarist in the world, literally, objectively the greatest guitarist. No, he isn't. It's Richie Blackmore or Jeff Beck or whatever. And
it's Jeff Beck.
It is. Admittedly, it is Jeff Beck. Actually, it's not. It's Robert Fripp. But anyway. So there's this very intimate two-way interaction between these two things. What that means is that when you're trying to influence behavior through this motivational pathway, you've got to be thinking to yourself, I've mentioned identity as a factor, link into people's identities, core identities, but also you've got to link into other things that the animal brain is paying attention to. And one of the things that the animal pays attention to is what happens in your imagination, is being able to imagine, in really vivid and concrete terms, what's going on here and what the outcomes are. And I'm not saying anything massively new here. This is all well-known stuff. But it's just that in Com B, we're bringing these really important ideas together into a single framework. But when you're marketing or when you're doing mass media campaigns to help to change behavior, one of the things that you do is you use imagery to go straight to the enjoyment and satisfaction, or the fear or the avoidance of discomfort and so on. And of course, in commercial marketing, you do the same thing, because that goes straight into the animal brain. That then feeds up to the worthwhile bit, the reflective motivation. So this would be a good idea. And you get a positive sort of feedback cycle, so that you've now crystallized on something that not only do you think is a good idea, but also that is supported by and reinforcing the idea that this will be satisfying for you or enjoyable, or will prevent you feeling bad in some way at the level of your animal brain. So imagination and identity are two really key features.
Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned imagination there, because as we're recording this, it is the dead of winter in February, and it's pretty rainy outside. It's been raining a lot. And I'm somebody who loves to go outside and likes to be active. So I don't like to be put off by going outside because it's cold or whatever. And so one of the strategies I use, because you're in a nice warm house, you could just stick on the telly or play Animal Crossing or something like that. But then you might think, oh, actually, I'd like to go out and perform at a poetry night or something. That's something I did last night. And the trick that I use for myself now is to imagine. It's very hard when you're in one situation to imagine yourself in another situation. Your brain, it is a bit of a stretch. But I know that as soon as I step out of my house, even if it is actually raining, weirdly, I enjoy being outside of my house. I have an intrinsic pleasure in just being, new things. And I get some energy from that. And so for myself, knowing that, I think, do you know what? I don't feel like going out right now. I just feel like staying in. And I imagine, I go, do you know what? I can't imagine it. I can't exactly imagine it now, but I bring to mind some of the feelings I have when I leave my home and I feel energized, even if it might be 8 o'clock or 8 o'clock at night and it's cold and it's sleet outside or whatever it is. I go, actually, this is an interesting experience. I'm getting something out of this. And that's a strategy that I use at this point. So I kind of can project forward even a little bit just to get me out the door. And then once you're out the door, well, you're out the door. So you can go and do whatever's next.
And going back to what we were saying earlier about everything is relative, and sometimes it's about just being, just enough ahead in terms of the anticipated enjoyment or satisfaction or whatever from the other thing. Little things like that can make quite a big difference. One of the things, as you know, Jamie, I do watch my weight. And one of the things, I use lots and lots of ways of doing it, including, making sure that I weigh myself so I never get too far beyond any sort of threshold. But one of the things I do is I'm in the kitchen and I'm thinking about having a chocolate biscuit. Chocolate biscuit's about 80 calories, right? I'm thinking, right, in 5 minutes' time, I will have eaten that chocolate biscuit and I will be right back where I started here now. Only I will have had to walk a mile's worth of calories to compensate for the calories that I've just consumed. And so you putting yourself in this future frame and realizing, that actually, what have you achieved here in terms of your the pleasure and satisfaction? Yeah, I got literally 2 minutes worth of pleasure, and now after it, I'm back where I started. I might as well not have bothered. Only I'm worse off than when I started. So things like that.
And how often does that work for you? How often does it work?
I would say it works about 20% of the time.
That's not bad.
It's not bad.
That's better than nothing, isn't it?
Yeah. But
obviously the easiest way for people listening at home is don't buy the chocolate in the first place. I obviously love chocolate biscuits. I think I mentioned that in the podcast earlier. Yeah, so this is not advice I follow. But obviously
it doesn't have to put you off,
it's interesting. But you want, but you have to have treats anyway. So.
You do, exactly. And so it's not an all or nothing thing. It's not like, I can never have chocolate biscuits because it's never going to be worth it for me to have to walk another mile in order to. It's in those margins, in those situations where it could be one or it could be another. And it just makes me reflect a little bit more on how much do I want it? How much am I going to enjoy it? Is it going to be worth it? Sort of thing. Now, people might think, for heaven's sake, seriously, that is, a bit of overkill. Like people, sometimes think that, daily weighing is overkill. But, not really. I mean, it's not a big deal one way or the other, but aggregated over lots of behaviors and times, it's not a big, it's not massive self-denial to, not have a chocolate biscuit on occasions when you would otherwise have had one. Similarly, it really isn't, a massive sort of issue weighing yourself every day just to check how things are going, as long as you don't, catastrophize when things aren't quite, how you want them to be.
Yeah, I had to get off that daily weighing because I couldn't tolerate the normal the normal differences, fluctuations in weight. I found it really slightly depressing. Just normal fluctuations, which can be between sort of about 1 or 2 kilograms, can't they? And I was like, oh no, I'm not doing this. So now, I think it's just whatever works for you. That's not something that would bother you, but could bother someone else. So it's obviously what works for you.
It is. Well, let's go into this digression on daily weight, because it is quite an interesting one.
We're nearly at the end, I must say. So we'll make it a brief digression.
All right, brief digression. The thing is, right, we all know, and you just said that you recognize that because of fluid, body weight goes up and down. It can be as much as 1 kilo, sometimes even more, or whatever's in your stomach or whatever. And so we know that. And so, when you weigh yourself and you're higher than you expected to be, instead of, it's no big deal. But it shouldn't stop you doing it, because essentially it's not about daily, right, this is going to sound strange, but daily weighing is not about your daily weight. Daily weighing is about the sort of scattergram of the trend in daily weight over a period of time. And one of the great things that allows you to do is to nip things in the bud before they get out of hand, and before it's going to be a massive pain in the neck to get your weight back down again, because you just, like the biscuit, you don't catastrophize about it. It's all fine. It is what it is, but it's a little thing that then contributes to the sort of random walk of your daily behaviors in a way that you can feel happy about, you can feel comfortable about, but keeps your behavior on the kind of track that you want it to be long term.
Yeah, I mean, it does work. It does work for you. I think that, of course, it depends on the way your brain works, because you're a scientist. You think in terms of graphs and trends and things like that. And other people's brains work differently. So, but I think good for you. It's working for you, and I like that. And I think that I feel like we needed to bring it back to Combi 2.0, but I think we've run out of time on this episode. We've just enjoyed talking about Animal Crossing and chocolate biscuits. So I hope that listeners have found that helpful. We will be back next time with more on motivation and more on the in-depth granularity. I think we've done quite a lot of technical episodes. I think that hopefully listeners will have enjoyed a bit of light relief from from that. But anyway, it just remains for me to say thank you very much, Robert.
Thank you, Jamie.
And thank you for listening wherever you are. Do have a look at the links below in the description to buy our books. And we look forward to joining you next time on the Unlocking Behaviour Change podcast.